The stagecoach rattled into Placerville, California, on a scorching August afternoon in 1878, carrying a young woman who dreaded every moment she would have to open her mouth and speak. Lily Johnson pressed her gloved hand against the window, watching the dusty streets unfold before her. The buildings looked sturdy enough, the people bustling about their business with purpose. She had traveled from Sacramento with hope knotting in her chest, hoping that this smaller town might offer her the fresh start she desperately needed. At 22 years old, she had spent her entire life fighting against the stutter that emerged whenever anxiety gripped her, which happened far too often in crowded places or among strangers. The stagecoach jolted to a stop outside the general store, and Lily gathered her carpetbag and small trunk. The driver helped her down, his weathered face kind but impatient as other passengers needed assistance. Lily opened her mouth to thank him, felt the familiar tightness in her throat, and instead simply nodded with what she hoped was a grateful smile. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as she stood on the wooden sidewalk, wondering where exactly the boarding house was supposed to be. Her cousin Margaret had written that it sat on the corner of Main and Bedford streets, run by a widow named Mrs. Patterson who welcomed respectable young women. Lily scanned the street signs, her heart beginning its familiar rapid percussion that always preceded her worst episodes. "You look lost, miss." The voice came from behind her, low and steady like distant thunder. Lily turned and found herself looking up at a tall man in dusty riding clothes, a worn hat shading eyes that were the color of creek water in summer. He stood with an easy confidence, one thumb hooked in his belt, but something in his expression seemed patient rather than presumptuous. Lily felt her throat constrict. I am LL looking for." The words tangled on themselves and heat flooded her cheeks. She looked down at her shoes, frustration burning behind her eyes. "Take your time," the man said, and there was no mockery in his tone, no impatience. "Ain't no rush." Something in those words, in the genuine calm of his demeanor, made Lily look up again. He waited, not fidgeting, not looking away as so many people did when her stutter emerged. He simply stood there as if he had all the time in the world. "Mrs. Patterson's boarding house," Lily managed, the words coming out more smoothly than they had any right to. The man nodded slowly. "That would be 2 blocks down, then left on Bedford. The white house with the blue shutters. Cannot miss it." "Thank you," Lily said, and the words emerged without a single stumble. Relief washed through her so powerfully that she felt almost dizzy. "Name's Nathan Zimmerman," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "I run a small ranch about 5 miles outside town. If you need anything while you are settling in, Mrs. Patterson knows how to reach most folks." Before Lily could respond, he had already turned and was walking toward a hitching post where a handsome bay horse waited. She watched him mount with fluid grace, then ride slowly down the street, dust rising in small clouds behind him. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Lily felt her racing heart slow to something approaching normal. She picked up her bags and began walking in the direction Nathan had indicated, her mind replaying the encounter. He had not stared. He had not grown uncomfortable. He had simply waited, as if her struggle to speak was nothing unusual, nothing shameful. Mrs. Patterson's boarding house was exactly as described, a well-maintained white structure with cheerful blue shutters. The woman who answered Lily's knock was plump and 50-ish, with iron-gray hair and sharp but not unkind eyes. "You must be Margaret's cousin," Mrs. Patterson said, ushering Lily inside. "She wrote that you would be arriving this week. Come in, come in. You look parched from the journey." The interior was neat and smelled of lemon oil and fresh bread. Mrs. Patterson led Lily through a comfortable parlor and up a narrow staircase to a small room at the back of the house. The space held a narrow bed, a washstand, a wardrobe, and a chair by the window that overlooked a small garden. "Rent is $12 a month, includes breakfast and supper," Mrs. Patterson said briskly. "No men above stairs, no liquor. Church on Sundays is encouraged but not required. Breakfast is at 7, supper at 6. You seem like a respectable girl, so I do not think we will have any problems. IWW will do my best to be a good tenant," Lily managed, feeling the stutter return now that she was in a confined space with this stranger. Mrs. Patterson's expression softened slightly. "Your cousin mentioned you sometimes have trouble with words. Pay it no mind, child. I had a brother who stuttered something fierce. He outgrew it eventually, but until then we all just learned to be patient. You take your time settling in. Supper is in about 2 hours." After the landlady left, Lily sank onto the bed and allowed herself a long, shaky breath. She had made it. She was here. Now she just needed to find work, establish herself, and perhaps, finally, build a life where people might see past her impediment to the capable woman beneath. The following morning, Lily dressed in her best day dress, a practical blue cotton that Margaret had helped her sew the previous spring. She braided her dark blonde hair and pinned it up neatly, studying her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand. Gray eyes looked back at her, wide set in a face that was pleasant if not remarkable. She looked respectable, she decided. That would have to be enough. Breakfast at Mrs. Patterson's table was a quiet affair shared with 3 other boarders. 2 older women who worked as seamstresses and a young clerk from the assayer's office. Lily ate her porridge and bacon in silence, grateful that the others seemed content to discuss local gossip without requiring much input from her. After the meal, Lily set out to explore Placerville properly. The town had grown up during the gold rush nearly 30 years earlier and had evolved from a rough mining camp into a more settled community. The main street boasted a bank, several stores, a hotel, 2 saloons, a church, and various other establishments. Lily noted a dressmaker's shop and decided to try there first for employment. The bell above the door jingled as she entered. The shop was small but organized, with bolts of fabric lining the walls and a counter displaying ribbons, buttons, and other notions. A thin woman with graying brown hair looked up from the dress she was pinning. "Help you?" the woman asked, not unfriendly but busy. "I am LL looking for work," Lily said, forcing the words out. "I can sew and embroider." The woman's expression grew skeptical. "You have experience?" "Why, yes. I worked for Mrs. C.H. Chambers in SS Sacramento for 3 years. The woman set down her pins. "I am Mrs. Whitmore. Truth is, I could use some help with the simpler mending and alterations. The fancy dressmaking I handle myself, but I have more basic work than I can manage alone. Pay would be 50 cents a day, 6 days a week. You would work here in the shop. Can you manage customers?" Lily's heart sank. Customer interaction. The exact thing that sent her stutter into its worst spirals. But she needed the work. "IW will manage," she said. "Mrs. Whitmore studied her for a long moment. "I will give you a trial, 1 week. If it works out, the position is yours. Start tomorrow, 8 in the morning." Lily left the shop with relief and trepidation warring in her chest. She had work, at least potentially. That was something. She spent the rest of the morning exploring the town, locating the post office, the library housed in a room above the general store, and the church at the end of Main Street. As she walked back toward the boarding house for the midday meal, she heard her name called. Turning, she saw Nathan Zimmerman walking toward her, leading his horse. He was dressed much as he had been the day before, work-worn clothes and dusty boots, but his face was freshly shaven and his eyes were warm. "Miss Johnson," he said, "you found Mrs. Patterson all right, I take it?" "Yes," Lily said, and again the word came easily. Thank you for your help. You settling in all right." He fell into step beside her, leading his horse. The animal's hooves made a steady clip-clop on the packed earth of the street. Something about Nathan's presence eased the tightness in Lily's chest. "I've found work at the dress shop, Mrs. Whitmore's. That is good news. She is fair, though exacting. You will do well there." He paused, then added, "I am in town picking up supplies. Heading back out to the ranch this afternoon, but I come in most Saturdays. Perhaps I might see you again." It was not quite a question, but Lily heard the hopeful note in it. Perhaps," she agreed, and felt a smile tug at her lips. Nathan touched his hat brim again and turned toward the general store. Lily continued to the boarding house, her mind full of the strange cowboy who somehow made her feel calm. The next morning, Lily arrived at Mrs. Whitmore's shop promptly at 8. The dressmaker set her to work immediately on a pile of torn shirt seams and trousers that needed hemming. The work was simple but soothing, the needle sliding through fabric in a rhythm that required no words. Around mid-morning, the bell jingled and a customer entered. Mrs. Whitmore was in the back room cutting fabric, so Lily set down her mending and approached the counter. The customer was a well-dressed woman in her 30s, clearly someone of means judging by the quality of her day dress. "I need this waist taken in," the woman said, placing a burgundy silk dress on the counter. "Can you manage that?" "Why, yes," Lily said. When do you need it?" The woman's expression shifted, a mix of discomfort and impatience crossing her features. "I beg your pardon. I cannot understand you." Heat flooded Lily's face. When do you need the dress?" "Oh, for heaven's sake," the woman muttered. "Is there someone else who can help me? Someone who speaks properly?" Mrs. Whitmore emerged from the back room, taking in the situation at a glance. "Mrs. Hendricks." "My assistant asked when you need the alteration completed. She speaks perfectly fine if you would give her a moment." Mrs. Hendricks sniffed. "I need it by Friday. I am attending a social at the hotel and simply cannot wear it as it is." "We can have it ready," Mrs. Whitmore said smoothly. "That will be $1. After the woman left, Mrs. Whitmore turned to Lily. "Pay her no mind. She thinks herself better than most folks because her husband owns the largest mercantile in town. You did fine." But Lily's hands were shaking, and the old shame had risen up to choke her. She returned to her mending, but the peace she had felt earlier was shattered. The week passed in a similar pattern. Most of the mending work she could do in peaceful silence, but customer interactions left her anxious and shaken. Mrs. Whitmore proved patient, often stepping in when Lily's stutter grew too pronounced, but Lily could see the calculations in the dressmaker's eyes. At the end of the week, however, Mrs. Whitmore offered her the permanent position. "You are a fine seamstress," the dressmaker said. "Better than fine, actually. Your stitches are some of the neatest I have seen. We will work on the customer side of things. Perhaps in time it will grow easier for you." Lily doubted that, but accepted the position with gratitude. Saturday arrived bright and warm, and Lily found herself watching the street from the shop window more than she should, wondering if Nathan would indeed come to town as he had mentioned. Around mid-morning, she spotted him riding down Main Street, and her heart performed an odd little skip. She told herself not to be foolish. He was simply a kind man who had offered directions. Nothing more. Yet when lunchtime came and Mrs. Whitmore sent her to fetch sandwiches from the hotel restaurant, Lily was not entirely surprised to find Nathan outside the general store, loading supplies into a wagon. "Miss Johnson," he said, his face brightening when he saw her. How was your first week of work? Challenging, Lily admitted, but I still have the P position. That is good. He secured a sack of flour in the wagon bed, then turned to face her fully. I wonder if you might like to take a walk later, maybe around 4 when your work is done. There is a nice path along the creek just outside town. Lily's immediate instinct was to refuse. Spending time alone with a man she barely knew was hardly proper. But something in Nathan's steady gaze, in the genuine interest on his face, made her pause. When had anyone ever seemed to want her company? I.W. would like that, she heard herself say. Nathan's smile was slow and genuine. I will meet you outside Mrs. Patterson's at 4 then. Lily walked back to the dress shop in a daze, clutching the wrapped sandwiches. Mrs. Whitmore took one look at her face and raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. Finally, 4 o'clock arrived, and Mrs. Whitmore shooed Lily out the door. Lily hurried back to the boarding house, where Nathan waited with his horse. He had cleaned up, she noticed, his face freshly washed and his shirt changed to a cleaner one. The creek path is this way, he said, falling into step beside her. He led his horse, which followed with docile patience. They walked through town and out toward the eastern edge, where a small creek burbled over smooth stones. A footpath followed the water, shaded by cottonwoods and willows. The sound of the flowing water was peaceful, and Lily felt her shoulders begin to relax. Tell me about yourself, Nathan said after they had walked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. What brought you to Placerville? I needed a change, Lily said. Sacramento was. She paused, searching for words. Difficult. Because of how you speak. Nathan asked, and there was no judgment in the question, only curiosity. Lily nodded, grateful that she did not have to explain further. People grow impatient. They think I am stupid or afraid. But you are not stupid, Nathan said matter-of-factly. That is clear from talking to you for even a minute. And being afraid of something is not a character flaw. We all have our fears. Lily glanced at him, surprised. What are you afraid of? Nathan was quiet for a moment, his eyes on the path ahead. Failure, I suppose. I have been building up my ranch for 5 years now. Started with nothing but a piece of land and a dream. Every day I worry that one bad season, one bit of bad luck, could wipe it all out. That I would have to admit defeat and go work for someone else's dream instead of building my own. The honesty in his words touched something deep in Lily's chest. That sounds lonely. It is, Nathan admitted. I have hired hands who come and go, but it is not the same as having someone to really share it with. Someone who understands what you are building and why it matters. They walked further and Nathan told her about his ranch. He raised cattle and horses, keeping a small herd that he could manage with just 1 or 2 hired hands. The land was good, with water access and decent grazing. He had built the house himself, a modest structure but solid. Eventually, he hoped to expand, maybe get into breeding quality horses. Lily found herself listening with genuine interest. And more than that, she found words coming to her more easily than they had in years. When Nathan asked about her life in Sacramento, she told him about working in the dress shop there, about her family. Her father had died when she was 16, her mother 2 years later. She had an older brother who had gone to San Francisco to work on the railroad and whom she rarely heard from anymore. So you are alone too, Nathan observed. Why, yes, Lily agreed. Mostly. The sun was beginning to lower toward the horizon when they finally turned back toward town. Nathan walked her to Mrs. Patterson's front gate, then stood there with his hat in his hands, turning it slowly. I enjoyed this afternoon, he said. Would you like to do it again next Saturday? Maybe I could show you the ranch if you are interested. IW would like that very much, Lily said, and realized she meant it completely. Over the following weeks, Saturday afternoons became the bright spot in Lily's life. Nathan would ride into town, attend to whatever business needed doing, and then they would spend several hours together. Sometimes they walked, sometimes they sat by the creek and talked, and twice he drove her out to his ranch in his wagon. The ranch house was indeed modest, a simple structure with 2 main rooms and a loft, but Nathan had built it with care. Everything was square and solid, built to last. The barn was larger, housing 4 horses and with stalls for cattle when needed. The land rolled gently around the buildings, golden grass dotted with oak trees. "It is not much yet," Nathan said the first time he showed it to her, and she heard the uncertainty in his voice. "It is wonderful," Lily said honestly. "You be built all this yourself, with help, but yes, every nail, every board." Pride colored his tone now. "It is mine. That matters more than I can say." As September gave way to October, Lily found herself thinking about Nathan constantly. The way he listened when she spoke, never rushing her, never finishing her sentences. The way he looked at her as if she were someone worth knowing. The way her stutter seemed to fade to almost nothing when they were alone together. At the dress shop, her work continued steadily. Mrs. Whitmore had been right that Lily's skill with a needle was exceptional, and gradually the dressmaker began giving her more complex work. Customer interactions remained difficult, but Mrs. Whitmore took on most of those duties, seeming content to have Lily focus on the actual sewing. One Saturday in late October, Nathan drove Lily out to the ranch and suggested a ride. "I have a gentle mare," he said. "She is sweet-tempered and would be perfect for you if you are willing to try." Lily had ridden only a handful of times in her life, but she agreed. Nathan saddled the mare, a pretty chestnut with a white blaze, and helped Lily mount. Then he swung up onto his own horse, and they rode out across the Golden Hills at an easy walk. The autumn air was crisp and clear, and the views stretched for miles. Nathan pointed out the boundaries of his property, the places where cattle liked to graze, the spring that provided water year-round. His voice was full of affection for this land, and Lily understood. He had poured his heart into this place. They stopped on a hilltop overlooking the ranch buildings, and Nathan dismounted, then helped Lily down. For a moment, his hands lingered on her waist, and when Lily looked up, she found his creek water eyes very close and very intent. "Lily," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." Her heart began its familiar race, but this time it was not from anxiety. "What is it?" "I've come to care for you deeply these past months. More than care for you, if I am being honest. I know we have not known each other long, but you are the first person in years who has made me feel like I am not alone in this world. Like maybe the ranch I am building does not have to be just for me." Lily's breath caught. "Nathan." "I am not proposing," he said quickly. "Not yet, anyway. I know it is too soon for that, but I wanted you to know my intentions are serious. I am courting you, Lily Johnson, if you will have me." Joy bubbled up in Lily's chest, so powerful she felt almost dizzy with it. "IW will have you," she managed. "I care for you too." More than I thought possible. Nathan's smile was like sunrise breaking over mountains. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, he leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle and sweet, a question and a promise all at once. Lily leaned into him, feeling a rightness settle into her bones. When they finally broke apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "You never stutter when we are alone," he observed softly. "Why is that, do you think?" Lily considered the question. "You make me feel calm," she said. "For the first time in my life, I do not feel like I have to rush my words or worry that someone is judging me. You just wait, and that changes everything." Then I will always wait, Nathan promised, for as long as you need. As autumn deepened into winter, Nathan and Lily's courtship continued. He came to town every Saturday without fail, and Lily looked forward to those days with an eagerness that still surprised her. Mrs. Patterson approved of the match, having inquired around town about Nathan's character and found nothing but good reports. He is known as a fair man, a hard worker, and honest in his dealings, Mrs. Patterson told Lily one evening. Those are qualities to value in a husband, should things progress that far. The thought of marriage both thrilled and terrified Lily. She had never imagined any man would want her, Stutter and all. Yet Nathan seemed to find her not merely acceptable, but genuinely desirable. He told her she was beautiful when her hair caught the light. He praised her skill with a needle and thread. He asked her opinions on things ranging from horse breeding to politics, and listened carefully to her answers. In December, Nathan invited Lily to spend Christmas at the ranch. Mrs. Patterson agreed to chaperone, and they made the journey out on Christmas Eve in Nathan's wagon, bundled under blankets against the winter chill. Nathan had decorated the ranch house with pine boughs, and had somehow procured a small pine tree which sat on the table, adorned with strings of popcorn and paper ornaments. He had spent the previous day cooking, and the house smelled wonderfully of roasting meat and baking bread. "I am not much of a cook," he admitted, "but I did my best." The meal was simple but good, and afterward they sat by the fire while Mrs. Patterson dozed in the one comfortable chair. Nathan and Lily sat side by side on the floor, her hand clasped in his. "I have something for you," Nathan said softly, drawing a small package from his pocket. "It is not much, but I wanted you to have it." Lily unwrapped the brown paper to reveal a delicate silver brooch in the shape of a horse. It was clearly old but well made, and it gleamed in the firelight. "It was my mother's," Nathan said. "She gave it to me before she passed and told me to give it to someone who mattered. You matter, Lily, more than I can say." Tears pricked Lily's eyes. "It is beautiful, thank you." She had a gift for him as well, a shirt she had sewn from sturdy blue cotton, with careful stitching and mother-of-pearl buttons she had saved up to buy. Nathan held it up, examining the workmanship with clear appreciation. "This is the finest shirt I have ever owned," he said. "I will save it for special occasions. Wear it whenever you like," Lily said. "I can make you more." The look Nathan gave her was full of such warmth that Lily felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I would like that very much," he said quietly. The new year of 1879 arrived with cold, clear weather. One Saturday in mid-January, Nathan asked Lily to take a walk with him despite the chill. They bundled up and headed to the creek path, now bare of leaves and with frost edging the stones. Nathan was quiet as they walked, and Lily could sense he had something on his mind. Finally, he stopped and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Lily, we have been courting for near about 6 months now. I know your heart, and I hope you know mine. I am 30 years old, and I have spent the last 5 years building a ranch, thinking that was all I needed. But meeting you showed me how wrong I was. A ranch is just land and buildings without someone to share it with." He released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, withdrawing a small box. When he opened it, a simple gold band gleamed inside. "I am not a rich man," Nathan continued, "but I am a steady one. I can provide for you, give you a good home, and promise you that I will spend every day trying to make you happy. Lily Johnson, will you marry me?" Lily's heart felt too large for her chest. She looked at Nathan's dear face, at the hope and love shining in his eyes, and knew her answer without hesitation. "Yes," she said, and the word came out clear and strong. "Yes, I will marry you." Nathan's whoop of joy startled a crow from a nearby tree. He swept Lily up and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. When he set her down, he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They were married on a bright Saturday in early March at the Placerville church. Mrs. Patterson helped Lily make her wedding dress, a simple but elegant gown of ivory wool with delicate embroidery at the collar and cuffs. Mrs. Whitmore attended, along with the other boarders and several people from town who had become friendly with Nathan over the years. Lily's cousin Margaret traveled from Sacramento to stand up with her, and Nathan's hired hand Tom served as his witness. The ceremony was short and simple, but when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Lily felt as if her life was truly beginning for the first time. The wedding breakfast was held at the hotel, a modest affair but cheerful. Then Nathan helped his new wife into the wagon, now decorated with ribbons and tin cans by the well-wishers, and they drove out to the ranch that would now be her home. That first night as Nathan's wife, Lily stood in the ranch house that was now hers too, looking around with wonder. Nathan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on top of her head. "Are you happy?" he asked softly. "Am more than I ever thought possible," Lily replied honestly. "I had never imagined someone would want me like this." Nathan turned her gently to face him. Then those people were fools who could not see what was right in front of them. "You are clever and kind and beautiful, and I am the luckiest man in California." That night, and in the days and weeks that followed, Nathan proved as patient and gentle a husband as he had been a suitor. He taught Lily to ride better, to help with the lighter ranch work, to love this land as he did. In turn, she made the house a true home, sewing curtains for the windows and a quilt for their bed, cooking meals that were better than Nathan's bachelor fare, and filling the rooms with warmth. Spring brought new life to the ranch. Calves were born, and Nathan was busy from dawn to dusk, managing the herd. Lily helped where she could, and in the evenings they would sit on the porch and watch the sun set over the hills while Nathan told her his plans for the future. "I am thinking of expanding the horse breeding operation," he said one evening. "There is good money in quality horses, and I have always had a way with them." "You have a way with all animals," Lily observed, "and people too." Nathan smiled and drew her close. "I just try to be patient and listen. Most creatures, human or otherwise, just want to be heard." By summer, Lily discovered she was expecting a child. The news filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She was 23 years old and about to become a mother. Would her child inherit her stutter? Would she be able to protect a child from the cruelty she had experienced? Nathan sensed her worries without her having to voice them. "Whatever comes, we will face it together," he told her, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "And if our child stutters, then we will teach them that it does not define them, just as you have learned." The words comforted her more than he probably knew. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the long, hot summer. Nathan was attentive without being overbearing, insisting Lily rest when she grew tired but not treating her like she was made of glass. In August, he hired a woman from town, Mrs. Chen, to come help with the heavier housework and cooking as Lily grew larger. Mrs. Chen was a quiet, efficient woman who had immigrated from China 15 years earlier. She spoke English well but with an accent, and she and Lily developed a comfortable working relationship. Mrs. Chen seemed to understand without being told that Lily sometimes struggled with words, and she never made an issue of it. As autumn arrived again, exactly 1 year since Nathan had first told Lily he was courting her, she felt the first pains of labor. Nathan rode into town at breakneck speed to fetch the midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Harper, who had delivered half the babies in Placerville over the past 20 years. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Nathan paced outside the bedroom, nearly wearing a path in the floorboards, while Mrs. Harper and Mrs. Chen attended to Lily. Finally, as the sun was setting on the second day, a baby's cry pierced the air. Nathan burst into the room to find Lily exhausted but smiling, holding a small bundle wrapped in blankets. "A son," Mrs. Harper announced. "A healthy boy." Nathan approached the bed slowly, awe written across his face. Lily drew back the blanket to reveal a red, wrinkled face and a shock of dark hair. The baby's eyes were squinted shut, and his tiny fists waved in the air. "He is perfect," Nathan breathed. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed and touched one finger to his son's tiny hand. Immediately, the baby's fist closed around it. "Look at that grip. He will be strong." They named him James, after Nathan's father, with the middle name Thomas for Tom, Nathan's loyal hired hand who had become a good friend. Little James proved to be a healthy, hungry baby who kept Lily busy, but filled her heart with a love she had not known existed. Nathan was a devoted father from the start. He would come in from working the ranch and immediately reach for his son, cooing to him and examining every finger and toe as if they were precious jewels. At night, when James woke crying, Nathan would often be the one to rise and walk the floor with him, singing old trail songs in his rough but soothing voice. Lily's stutter, which had grown less pronounced over the year and a half of her marriage, barely appeared at all now when she was at home with her family. Only when she occasionally went into town did the old nervousness return, and even then, it was not as severe as it had once been. She had grown more confident, more secure in herself. As James grew from infant to toddler, the ranch continued to prosper. Nathan's expansion into horse breeding proved successful, and he developed a reputation for quality stock. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable, and the future looked bright. One evening when James was 2 years old, Lily sat on the porch watching her son chase chickens around the yard while Nathan worked on mending a fence. She reflected on how much her life had changed since that hot August day when she had arrived in Placerville, terrified and alone. Nathan looked up from his work and caught her eye. He smiled, that slow, warm smile that still made her heart skip, and she smiled back. Later, after James was tucked into his small bed and the house was quiet, Nathan pulled Lily close on the porch swing. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "How lucky I am," Lily said. "How different my life might have been if you had not helped me find Mrs. Patterson's that first day." "I am the lucky one," Nathan countered. "You made this ranch a home, Lily. You made me a better man. You gave me a son I love more than my own life. If anyone is lucky, it is me." They sat in comfortable silence, the swing creaking gently, the stars bright overhead. In the distance, a coyote called and cattle lowed softly in response. It was a peaceful sound, a safe sound. In the spring of 1882, when James was nearly 3 years old, Lily discovered she was expecting again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, and in December, she gave birth to a daughter they named Grace Margaret, after Lily's cousin who had helped her come to Placerville. Grace was a quieter baby than James had been, with her mother's gray eyes and her father's dark hair. James was fascinated by his little sister, wanting to hold her constantly under careful supervision. The years passed in the rhythm of ranch life. James grew into a sturdy, talkative boy who followed his father everywhere, learning the ways of horses and cattle. Grace was more reserved but observant, watching everything with her thoughtful gray eyes. By 1885, when James was 6 and Grace was 3, the ranch had expanded considerably. Nathan had taken on 2 more permanent hired hands and had built a larger barn. The house had been expanded as well, with 2 additional bedrooms and a proper parlor. They were prosperous by local standards, well respected in the community. Lily had become more involved in town life as well, though she still found large gatherings challenging. She taught Sunday school at the church, where the small class of children seemed to bring out the best in her. Children rarely judged her stutter, and she found she could speak more easily to them than to adults. Mrs. Whitmore had retired, selling her shop to a younger woman, but Lily still did occasional sewing for neighbors and friends. She enjoyed the work, the way the needle and thread could create beauty and utility from simple fabric. One Saturday in July, the Zimmerman family went into town for the Independence Day celebration. Placerville always held a large gathering with a picnic, races, and fireworks. James was excited about the horse races, hoping his father might enter, and Grace clutched her mother's hand, wide-eyed at all the people. As they walked through the crowd, Lily saw Mrs. Hendricks, the woman who had been so impatient with her stutter all those years ago at the dress shop. Mrs. Hendricks approached with a tight smile. "Mrs. Zimmerman," she said, "I heard your husband is doing quite well with his horse breeding. My husband is interested in purchasing a stallion." Lily felt the old anxiety begin to rise but took a slow breath. Nathan stood beside her, his presence solid and reassuring, and James held her other hand. She had a family now, a place where she belonged. "Why you should speak with my husband," Lily said calmly. "Nathan knows the horses better than anyone." Mrs. Hendricks's gaze flickered with something that might have been embarrassment. "Yes, of course. Nathan, might we discuss business next week?" After the woman left, Nathan squeezed Lily's shoulder. "You handled that well," he said quietly. "I had help," Lily replied, looking up at him with a smile. The day was perfect, full of sunshine and laughter. James won a ribbon in the boys' foot race, and Grace fell asleep on her father's shoulder during the fireworks. As they drove home in the wagon under a sky full of stars, Lily felt a profound sense of contentment. This was her life now. Not perfect, because nothing ever was, but good. Full of love and purpose and belonging. She still stuttered when nervous, probably always would, but it no longer defined her. She was a wife, a mother, a member of a community. She was Lily Zimmerman, and she had found her place in the world. The following years brought their share of challenges. There was a drought one summer that had Nathan worried about the cattle, though they managed to get through it with their reliable spring. Grace fell seriously ill one winter with pneumonia, and for a terrifying week, they thought they might lose her. But she pulled through with the help of a determined doctor from Sacramento who happened to be visiting Placerville. James grew into a responsible young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Grace developed a keen interest in reading and learning, and Nathan and Lily made sure she had access to all the books they could acquire. Tom, Nathan's longtime hired hand, eventually married a widow from town and built a small house on the edge of the Zimmerman property, becoming more family than employee. By 1890, when James was 11 and Grace was 8, Lily was surprised to find herself expecting again. At 35 years old, she had assumed her childbearing years were behind her, but apparently life had other plans. Nathan was delighted, though concerned for her health at her age. "We will get the best doctor from Sacramento if need be," he insisted. "Whatever you need." This pregnancy was more tiring than the previous 2, and Lily was grateful for Grace's help around the house. Her daughter had grown into a capable young girl who could cook simple meals and keep the house tidy. James took on more responsibility with the ranch work, freeing Nathan to spend more time with Lily. In early spring of 1891, Lily gave birth to twin boys. The delivery was difficult, and for a while the doctor feared for both mother and babies, but all three survived. They named the twins William and Henry, and suddenly the ranch house was filled with the chaos of infant cries and endless feedings. James and Grace rose to the challenge of having twin baby brothers, helping with everything from diaper changes to late-night wakings. Nathan hired a young woman from town to help with the housework and the babies, giving Lily time to recover her strength. The twins proved to be as different as two boys could be. William was quiet and observant like Grace, while Henry was energetic and curious like James. They kept the entire household on their toes. As the twins grew from infants to toddlers, the ranch continued to thrive. Nathan's reputation as a horse breeder had spread throughout Northern California, and he often had more buyers than horses to sell. He began training James in the finer points of horse breeding and handling, preparing him to eventually take over the operation. Grace showed no interest in ranching, but had developed a passion for teaching. She helped her mother with the Sunday school classes and talked often about becoming a real teacher when she grew older. Nathan and Lily encouraged her dreams, understanding that their daughter might forge a path different from the ranch. The years rolled on in a pattern of seasons and celebrations, challenges and triumphs. James turned 18 in 1897 and took over much of the day-to-day ranch management, allowing Nathan to focus more on the breeding and training side of the business. Grace, at 15, was already teaching at the local school part-time while completing her own education. The twins, now 6 years old, were a handful but brought constant life and laughter to the household. They attended the small school in town and were known for their mischief and charm. One evening in the fall of 1897, Nathan and Lily sat on the porch as they had countless times over the years. Their children were all inside, the older ones helping the younger ones with their schoolwork. The sounds of family life drifted through the open windows. "You remember the day we met?" Nathan asked, taking Lily's hand in his. "How could I forget?" Lily replied, her stutter now so minimal that it only appeared occasionally. "I was lost and frightened, and you were kind. I saw a beautiful woman who needed help," Nathan said. "I never imagined that helping you find a boarding house would lead to all of this." He gestured to the house, the land, the life they had built. "I never imagined any of it," Lily admitted. "I thought I would always be alone, always struggling. But you saw me, Nathan, really saw me." Nathan raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "You were always worth seeing, Lily. You just needed someone patient enough to wait while you found your voice." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the hills they had worked and loved for nearly 2 decades. The ranch that Nathan had built alone had become a legacy for their children and grandchildren to come. The life that Lily had never dared dream of had become her reality. In the house behind them, James called out asking about something for supper, and Grace's patient voice answered. The twins laughed at something, their joy infectious. This was home. This was family. This was love. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lily leaned her head on Nathan's shoulder, feeling the steady strength of him, the constant presence that had been her anchor for 19 years. Her stutter, that thing that had once defined and limited her, was now just a small part of who she was. A piece of her story, but not the whole story. The whole story was this. A woman who had been afraid to speak had found a man who taught her that being heard was not about rushing words, but about finding someone willing to truly listen. Together, they had built a life that was full and rich, blessed with children and prosperity and the deep, abiding love that comes from choosing each other every single day. James married in 1900, bringing his young bride Sarah to live on the ranch. She was a sweet girl from Sacramento, the daughter of a banker, and though she knew nothing about ranch life, she learned quickly. Within a year, she made Nathan and Lily grandparents with the birth of a daughter they named Lily Rose. Grace followed her dreams and attended a teaching college in San Francisco, though she came home every summer. She was passionate about education and determined to make a difference in children's lives. In 1902, she accepted a teaching position in Placerville and moved into a small house in town that Nathan and James had helped her purchase. The twins, now 11, were showing signs of taking after their father in their love of horses. They spent every free moment in the barn or riding across the hills, and Nathan predicted they would be exceptional horsemen someday. Holding her first grandchild, Lily felt the cycle of life completing itself in the most beautiful way. This tiny girl would grow up knowing nothing but love and acceptance. She would never know what it was to be made to feel less than because of something she could not control. That was Lily's legacy, as much as the ranch or the horses or anything else. The years continued their march. More grandchildren came, some from James and Sarah, and eventually from the twins as they grew and married. Grace never married, devoted to her teaching career, but she was beloved by generations of Placerville children who called her the best teacher they ever had. Nathan's hair went gray, then white, but his love for Lily never wavered. Even as they aged, he would still hold her hand, still wait patiently when her stutter occasionally returned during times of stress or illness, still look at her as if she were the most precious thing in his world. On a warm summer evening in 1915, Nathan and Lily celebrated their 36th wedding anniversary. Their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a party, the house overflowing with family and love. James ran the ranch now, with help from the twins, but Nathan still took pleasure in working with the horses he loved. As the party wound down and the grandchildren were put to bed in various corners of the expanded house, Nathan and Lily found their way to the porch swing, their special place. Nathan was 66 now, Lily 60, and they had lived a full life together. "You remember what I promised you the day I proposed?" Nathan asked, his voice still strong despite his years. "You promised to make me happy every D-Day," Lily said. Her stutter had actually returned somewhat as she aged, but it bothered her far less than it once had. She had lived too full a life to let it define her now. "Have I kept that promise?" Nathan asked, though there was no real doubt in his voice. "Every single day," Lily confirmed, resting her head on his shoulder as she had done thousands of times before. "Every single day." They sat in the gathering darkness, watching fireflies begin to dance over the pastures, listening to the sounds of their family settling in for the night. The ranch that had once been just Nathan's dream was now the foundation of a family dynasty, a place where children and grandchildren would grow and thrive. And it had all started because a kind cowboy had taken the time to help a stuttering young woman find her way, and then had taken even more time to help her find herself. The seasons continued to turn, as they always had and always would. Spring brought new calves and colts. Summer brought the work of haying and long, hot days. Fall brought the gathering of the harvest and the preparation for winter. Winter brought rest and time for family gatherings around the fire. Through it all, Nathan and Lily remained the heart of the family, the foundation upon which everything else was built. They had weathered drought and disease, financial struggles and personal losses. They had celebrated weddings and births, anniversaries and achievements. They had lived a life that mattered, not because of wealth or fame, but because of the love they had nurtured and the family they had raised. As they grew older still, their adult children began to take on more of the care, the roles reversing as happens in every family. James managed the ranch entirely now, making decisions and guiding its continued prosperity. Grace, retired from teaching, visited often and helped care for her aging parents. The twins, now established with families of their own, ensured that Nathan and Lily wanted for nothing. On a crisp October morning in 1920, Nathan woke to find sunlight streaming through the bedroom window. Lily still slept beside him, her face peaceful in repose. He studied her, this woman who had transformed his life so completely. The lines on her face were earned through years of laughter and love. Her hair, once golden blonde, was now silvery white. To him, she had never been more beautiful. Lily's eyes opened and she smiled to find him watching her. "Good morning," she said clearly. No stutter at all in this most peaceful of moments. "Good morning, my love," Nathan replied. They rose and dressed, helping each other with buttons and laces as they had learned to do. The house was quiet, as James and his family had moved into a house of their own nearby years ago, though they visited daily. Nathan and Lily had the place mostly to themselves now, which they found they enjoyed. After a simple breakfast, they walked slowly out to the pastures. Nathan wanted to check on a mare who was due to foal any day. The morning was beautiful, the air crisp with the promise of autumn, the hills golden under the sun. "I have been thinking," Nathan said as they walked, "about the day we met, about how one small act of kindness can change everything." "It changed everything for me," Lily agreed. "You saved me, Nathan, not just that day, but every day after." "We saved each other," Nathan corrected. "You gave me a reason to build this ranch into something more than just land and animals. You made it a home, a family, a legacy." They reached the pasture where the pregnant mare grazed peacefully. She looked up at their approach, and Nathan spent a few moments checking her over, his experienced hands gentle and sure. Satisfied that all was well, he and Lily turned to head back to the house. As they walked, Lily stumbled slightly on the uneven ground. Nathan caught her immediately, his arm strong and steady around her waist. "Careful," he murmured. "Always catching me when I fall," Lily said with a soft laugh. "Always," Nathan agreed. "That is what I am here for." The years continued to pass, each one a gift. Nathan and Lily celebrated their golden wedding anniversary in 1925, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The party was held at the ranch, now run entirely by James and his sons, but still bearing Nathan's mark in every fence post and building. Grace, now 64 and finally showing her age, had compiled a history of the ranch and the family, interviewing her parents extensively about their early years. She wanted the younger generations to know the story, to understand how far the family had come. "Tell us again how you met," one of the great-grandchildren begged at the anniversary party. Nathan looked at Lily, and they shared a smile full of decades of shared memories. Then Nathan began the story, his voice still strong despite his 76 years. "It was a hot August day in 1878, and I was in Placerville picking up supplies. I saw a young woman standing outside the general store, looking lost and beautiful. She asked me for directions, and though she stuttered when she spoke, I heard the intelligence and strength behind the words. I helped her find her way that day, and somehow she found her way into my heart." Lily picked up the story. "He was kind when so many others had not been. He waited while I struggled to speak, never rushing me, never making me feel less than. He taught me that being heard is not about perfect words, but about finding someone willing to truly listen." The children and grandchildren listened with rapt attention, as they always did when the story was told. It was a love story for the ages, made all the more powerful because it was true, and had created the family now gathered around them. As the party continued into the evening, Nathan and Lily once again found their way to their beloved porch swing. The sounds of their family celebrating drifted through the open windows, a symphony of love and life. 50 years, Nathan marveled. 50 years since I put that ring on your finger. Best 50 years of my life, Lily said. The only 50 years that truly mattered. They sat together as the stars emerged one by one, just as they had done countless times before. The ranch spread out before them in the darkness, familiar and beloved. This land had been their foundation, their livelihood, their legacy. But it had never been the most important thing. The most important thing was sitting beside them, had been there all along. It was the choice they had made 50 years ago to join their lives together. It was the patience and kindness that had bloomed into deep love. It was the family they had created and nurtured. It was the knowledge that in a world that could be harsh and unkind, they had built something good and lasting. Nathan Zimmerman passed away peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1927, just shy of his 78th birthday. Lily was beside him, holding his hand, and he went with a smile on his face and her name on his lips. The family gathered for the funeral, which was held at the Placerville church, where Nathan and Lily had been married 48 years earlier. The church was packed with family, friends, and people whose lives Nathan had touched over the decades. He was remembered as a fair man, a devoted husband and father, a skilled rancher and horseman, and someone who treated everyone with respect and kindness. After Nathan's death, Lily remained at the ranch, though James and his wife insisted she move into their house where they could care for her properly. She was 72 years old and had spent half a century building a life with Nathan. His absence was a physical ache in her chest. But she had her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren around her, all of them products of the love she and Nathan had shared. She found comfort in them, in the continuation of the family they had started. Grace moved back to the ranch to keep her mother company, and the two women spent long hours talking about the old days, about Nathan and their life together. Lily's stutter had largely faded again in her grief, the words flowing more easily as she shared memories with her daughter. "He was the best man I ever knew," Lily said one evening as she and Grace sat on the porch. "He never once made me feel like my stutter was something to be ashamed of. He just waited, always waited, until I could find my words." "He loved you completely," Grace agreed. "Anyone could see that. You gave him a life full of love and family, and he gave you the same. That is the greatest gift two people can give each other." Lily lived for 2 more years after Nathan's passing, years filled with the love of her family and the memories of the life she had built. She taught her great-grandchildren to sew, told them stories about the early days of the ranch, and made sure they all knew the importance of patience and kindness. On a warm spring morning in 1929, Lily Johnson Zimmerman passed away peacefully with her children around her. She was 74 years old and had lived a life beyond anything she had imagined that day. She arrived in Placerville as a frightened, stuttering young woman. She was laid to rest beside Nathan in the Placerville cemetery, under a sky so blue it seemed to stretch forever. The entire town turned out for her funeral, testament to the woman she had become over the course of her life. She was remembered as a devoted wife and mother, a skilled seamstress, a patient teacher, and a kind soul who had overcome her challenges to build a remarkable life. The ranch continued under James's capable management, then passed to his sons, and then to their children. The Zimmerman name became synonymous with quality horses throughout Northern California. But more than that, it became synonymous with integrity, fairness, and the kind of quiet strength that Nathan and Lily had embodied. Years turned into decades, and the story of Nathan and Lily became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. It was a story about finding love in unexpected places, about the power of patience and kindness, about overcoming challenges through the support of someone who truly sees you. The porch swing where they had spent so many evenings remained at the original ranch house, now preserved as a family heritage site. Descendants would visit and sit on that swing, imagining their great-great-grandparents sitting there together, watching the sun set over the hills they loved. And perhaps, in some way beyond understanding, Nathan and Lily were still there. In the land they had worked, in the family they had created, in the legacy of love and acceptance they had left behind. They had taken the raw materials of two lonely lives and forged something beautiful that echoed through generations. A stuttering young woman and a patient cowboy had found each other on a hot August day in 1878, and from that chance meeting had grown a love story that would inspire their family for generations to come. It was proof that sometimes the most extraordinary things begin with the simplest acts of kindness, and that sometimes finding someone who makes you feel calm is the same as finding home,